Scott Morrison is speaking.
Exactly the same courage, exactly the same care and compassion for each other. It is a great privilege to see this in our country. It is who we are, and I want to thank everyone here in Townsville for all the incredible work they're doing. We're here at the Ignatius College Evacuation Centre, run by the Red Cross. I want to thank the Red Cross for the tremendous work they've been doing here. I'm joined, of course, by Linda Reynolds, the Assistant Minister, by Philip Thompson, who's the LNP candidate here in Herbert, who's been out there filling bags, helping people, getting them off roofs, being part of the general effort just as a member of the community, a former Defence Force person here in Townsville. We've got George is here as well, as you know, and a local member here, and Ian McDonald, who's been here for almost 30 years in Townsville. I'm both glad that George and Ian could join me here today. As the waters recede here, and we start to move from the response phase to the recovery phase, there will be big shocks for the community, as we've seen this morning, as they return to their homes, as they assess the damage to their homes. Yes, there's the physical loss, but there is also the mental shock, and just coming to terms with it. And we saw that firsthand this morning. I'm pleased that we're able to provide some comfort, but I really want to thank the Defence Forces and the emergency service personnel, QPOL, everybody for the work they're doing here, and the gratitude from the people of Townsville and surrounding areas is sensational. And it comes naturally because they've seen what people have done. I mean, to hear the stories of how people were evacuated in the middle of the night, floodwaters, dark, kids, the fact that we've had in that, the loss of life, I'm aware of a couple of reports which aren't confirmed, but the fact that people are safe today here in Townsville, I think, is an extraordinary achievement, and is something that I think people of Townsville can pat themselves on the back on. They've held together and they've kept each other safe. And as you go through the evacuation centre here and you talk to people in other places, the homes that they've been put up in, and there's going to be a lot more of that. Over the next few weeks, there's going to be a lot more of that. On Monday, as you know, here in Townsville, I announced that the emergency disaster payment was available straight away. That's as of Monday, and the disaster allowance also kicked in from Monday, and I'll ask Linda to talk a bit more about that. So for those eligible for those payments, and that will be a large number here in Townsville, I would encourage them to get in touch with Human Services, Centrelink, and make sure that they're accessing those immediate payments. There'll be tens of millions spent here in Townsville to support the local community get back up on their feet, just in those cash assistance payments alone, income support payments. And then, of course, there's the work that will be done. Category 3 assistance, I understand the Premier has announced that she was requesting that in her statement, a media conference just a few minutes ago. Of course, we're happy to provide that. Every request that is being made of us, our answer is yes, and quickly. We have also initiated last night, I gave the instruction for the Defence Forces to support airlifts. There's one that will be getting off the ground very soon, and that's going into Cairns. We need those shelves stocked, and to the extent that the grocers and the food retailers need further support, then that will be available to them to make sure we keep those shelves stocked and that people can have those basic necessities looked after. So it is a matter of thanking all of those who have planned, who have prepared. I mean, here alone in Townsville, about 5,500 serving men and women, and they're serving their own local community right now. They're out there, many of whom, hundreds of them, their own homes affected, and they've been out there helping others. And I think that's a tribute to our serving men and women, but to all of those who are putting in at the moment on behalf of a very grateful nation. Thank you for being great Australians. Linda, why don't you talk a bit more about those payments and the immediate next steps?
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Well, as the Assistant Minister for Home Affairs, I'm responsible to ensure that all Commonwealth agencies are coordinated and providing all possible assistance to the Queensland authorities and, of course, to the local communities here. So for anybody here in Townsville or in surrounding areas who have been impacted, please contact Centrelink straight away. Payments will be able to be applied for as soon as today. So if your income has been affected, if you can't get to work, if you can't get your primary produce out to market, if you're a sole trader and your business is closed, please contact Centrelink because you can apply for the disaster recovery allowance. So please do that. If you are in emergency need and you have had water in your house, for example, you can also ask for the disaster relief payment, and that's up to $1,000 right away to help you over the next few days and weeks. Of course, over the coming weeks, we'll continue to work very closely with the Premier and the Queensland Government. We are expecting a request today from the Premier to start the next phase for the Category C payments, and we'll work through with the Queensland Government to actually assist small businesses and communities on the road to recovery. I think given the extent of the disaster that the Prime Minister and I have seen here today, we will be working very closely with the local community, the local members, and also a lot of the civil society organisations here who have been doing such an outstanding job. And can I just say, as an Army officer myself, I could not have been any prouder of the work that the Army forces have done here. We met many people today who were in there briefing the Prime Minister, who've been out there 3 o'clock in the morning saving others in their houses when their own house has been inundated and their families were in evacuation centres. So personally, to all of the military forces and to the RAF crews who are now en route to Cairns delivering much needed food, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. We have every right to be very proud of you. And that, of course, goes to the emergency services personnel that the Prime Minister and I have met. Again, they have been out there supporting others in the community, saving lives, and we've heard the most extraordinary stories. But the thing that sticks with me now as the Federal Minister responsible is the stories of courage and resilience from the local communities we visited this morning, and just how quickly the floodwaters came up and how quickly people needed to be evacuated. So as Federal Minister, again, that's the sort of thing we'll be working with the community in the longer term to see if there's ways that we can make some of our suburbs and communities more resilient to these once-in-a-100-year floods. But thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you, Linda. So good on your 3rd Brigade. Very proud of you. Very proud of you. And insurance companies as well, they'll be stepping up. I'll be expecting them to step up, and I that's what I believe they will do, and we'll make sure that they do so, but I have no reason to think they won't, and so we're looking for them to be here and doing what you'd expect of them in these circumstances as well. So happy to take some questions on this, to then, once we've done that, extend to other matters of the day.
We've seen a lot of emotional scenes you spoke about, what you've seen there. What was it like for you going through those streets today?
Look, it was frankly quite overwhelming. Mums and dads, as they look at their kids and they think about, just how tight things got trying to get out the other night. And I think they're very grateful that while there have been property losses and damage, they just look at each other and say, thank goodness we've got each other. You can replace things, but you can't replace loved ones. But the real shock, the community we're in this morning, some people hadn't been there that long. It's a lot of young families. They've worked so hard to, get themselves into these homes and to see them just damaged so badly. Comfort, of course, that's what was our pleasure to do today. But the real work is to make sure that they can get through the clean-up and rebuild their lives. And we know that that's what happens. It's just going to be tough. It's going to be tough for a while.
And one of the things, perhaps, what we saw this morning that stuck with me is that with many of the people we talked to, they didn't have any insurance at all, and all were very underinsured. So I think for the local community, one of the things now moving forward from today is really to work with local agencies and supporting those people who won't have any furniture to go back and don't have any means to clean up their own properties.
So there'll be a lot of not-for-profits who can help with that too. So, yeah.
Prime Minister, are you confident that places should be built on floodplains? Do you think subdivisions should be built in places like that?
Look, I'm not going to get into those issues today. I'm here today to lend my support and the country's support to the people of Townsville. With all natural disasters, there is always a work that is done following that to learn the lessons, and they are really matters for the state government and the local authorities, I think, to determine, and I'm sure they will work through those issues. Right now, my priority is making sure we get these emergency assistance payments to people, that people know that they are there and that they can take advantage of those, and that can help them deal with the most immediate needs that they have today.
Time for more federal government infrastructure spending to protect North Queenslanders and North Queensland communities, Prime Minister?
Well, last time I was here, I was announcing $100 billion for water infrastructure here in Townsville. So there's been no shortage of our commitment to infrastructure here in North Queensland. We have been investing heavily here, and we will continue to do that. I know Phil Thompson's been a great advocate of that, and we've been happy to back him and George and Ian in on these projects. So I think our record here speaks for itself on those things.
What about funding for the upgrade of the inland roads so these communities can be supplied when the coastal routes are cut?
Well, look, lessons will be taken from these events, and there's a state responsibility here as well. We'll work with state governments, but our commitment in the hundreds of millions that we've committed here in North Queensland and more, I think speaks for itself.
The road, maybe?
Well, I think I've answered the question.
Well, just to add on to that.
Just one thing on that too. Once we've got through this initial period, because as the Prime Minister said, this is all about assisting people now getting through the next few days and weeks. But one of the issues that we need further advice from the Queensland Government on is it's not just the quantum of money that's spent on infrastructure, it's a suitability to deal with floods and natural disasters. So there is certainly an issue in terms of the quality and the type of infrastructure we have here in far north Queensland as we rebuild.
But George, you wanted to make a point?
Well, there's a several kilometre section south of here that everyone knows, the Horton River Bridge, which is flooded, and that's really where the southern access to Townsville has been cut off mainly. Within a few weeks, actually, we're starting a rebuild and upgrade of that project on the Bruce Highway with about $500 million from the federal government going into it. So these things are being done.
There's been a number of
Any other? We could have a one-on-one interview, but I'm happy to share it around a bit. But if you'd like to keep going, go. Okay, no, let's stay on Townsville. We're in Townsville, so.
Just one more.
Yeah.
There's been a record number of weather events in North Queensland in recent years. Cyclones, floods. Does it make you think of climate change? Does it affect your thinking on it?
My thinking right now is about the people of Townsville and making sure they get the emergency support they need. I'm not engaging in broader policy debates today. What I'm engaging in today is the needs of people here on the ground, people in evacuation centres, and finding what they're going to find. That's what I'm focused on today, not politics.
Can we move?
So would you like to move to other issues? We can do that. Yep.
On the Phelps refugee transfer bill, can you ever see yourself supporting that?
No.
Would you consider changing your proposal to get McGowan support?
I've set out what we propose to do. I won't compromise our border protection system. And if the Labor Party want to support the Phelps bill and the boats start again, it's on their head.
Labor says on the Royal Commission, Labor says it would agree to extending Parliament to implement some of those recommendations. Are you open to changing the sitting schedule?
We're going to take action on all 76 recommendations coming from the Royal Commission. I want to commend the Treasurer and his team for ensuring that the government was able to put out a full response in response to the Royal Commission's report, which we did over the weekend, and took that through the normal process. And that means that markets both had certainty yesterday, and today, I should say, which has been very important. We've been taking action when it comes to the financial sector now for years. The Banking Executive Accountability Regime, the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, $176 million extra for resources for enforcement. And now we're moving forward on the compensation schemes and through the industry to ensure that people get their right of hearing when it comes to the matters that they're concerned about. They're important recommendations. We've considered them carefully. We're taking action on all 76. And the Labor Party might want to engage in all sort of politics on this. We're just getting on with it because we've been getting on with it for years now. In fact, our actions have already gone beyond what the Royal Commission has actually recommended because we've been taking action on this issue for years.
Malcolm Turnbull is talking about it as
Should the government apologise for not calling this Royal Commission sooner?
Well, I'll just refer to what I said last year. I expressed last year my own regret as Treasurer when it came to being very focused on the issues of financial system stability, but I expressed my own regret at some of the human factors that needed greater consideration in terms of calling the Royal Commission. But let me be frank, I called the Royal Commission. I introduced the Banking Executive Accountability Regime. We introduced the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. We introduced the additional resources and support for ASIC. acted on the financial systems inquiry that we implemented when we came to government in 2013. As a government, we've been taking action on this issue from the day we were first elected. Labor were in government for 6 years. Storm financial crisis after financial crisis. Bill Shorten was the Financial Services Minister, for goodness sake. Did he call a Royal Commission then? No. Did he take action then? No. Our government has taken action from the day we were elected on these issues. I expressed my regret last year and I meant it, but we just got on with it. Australians know it's about the action that you take. So I initiated the Royal Commission. I've responded to the Royal Commission as Prime Minister with the Treasurer and our entire team, and we are taking action on all 76 recommendations. And I noted Malcolm's comments earlier, and I think they're in line with what I've just said to you now.
So can I just clarify, is that the government saying sorry that it didn't
No, I've already.
call this 18 months before?
I referred to my comments last year. I said I regretted that last year.
So why do you think you failed to call it earlier? What was blocking you being able to do that?
Well, as Treasurer, you're always going to be focused and you're going to be careful about what the potential impacts are on a financial system on which everybody's livelihoods depend. You know, your mortgage, your loan, everything goes through the financial system. And I was being very careful. You could accuse me of being overly cautious. And I was concerned in particular about what it would mean for credit restrictions in the economy and how that could slow the economy down. Now we know that that has been one of the things that actually has happened, and that has impacted on the economy. But we've called it, we've done it. It was done, I think, in a very timely and thorough way, and I want to thank particularly Justice Hayne and all of his team for the very thorough job that they did. Over 10,000 cases, submissions that they carefully considered, which have informed the recommendations that they've put forward. So we've just got on with it. The politics of this, who cares? It's not about the politics, it's about those who are impacted by the egregious behaviour of the banks and the policies of those banks. They're the ones who the Royal Commissioner has called out, and he in particular has said, just as I did when the Laker inquiry came down from APRA when I was Treasurer, and he called out the boards of those banks, the boards of these big public companies, and he has laid the blame.
That's the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, speaking in Townsville initially about the flood situation in Queensland, but as you were hearing, many of the later questions were about his response to the Royal Commission report into banks and financial services. He says the government will take action on all 76 recommendations coming out of that report.